Welcome back to episode 18 of Riff Ram Review right here on 88.7 The Choice. I'm Zion Trammell, joined by Ian Napetian and Seth Dowdle. Wanted to thank Jared Sandler for coming on the show. It was a lot of fun talking about the Texas Rangers and chatting about baseball with him. It was a really fun time. So thank you again, Jared, for coming on the show. Let's get right into it, though, because we're going to talk a little bit about TCU men's basketball. Last week they had two games, one against number 15 Texas Tech and Texas on Saturday. Things went pretty well for the Frogs against Texas Tech. They won 85-78 in what was one of the most chaotic and loud atmospheres I've been a part of as a TCU fan, and just, you know, being there at the Schollmeyer Arena. It was so loud. And so much fun to watch. Travion Tennyson led the way with 23 points. But, let's talk about this game. What were some of the takeaways from that win over Texas Tech?
Yeah, I mean, just an emphatic win for TCU. Coming into a week where you've got number 15 Texas Tech and unranked Texas, which we'll get to later. It was obviously a huge week for basketball. And, you know, TCU coming in with a two-game winning streak to get that win over Tech was huge. It was also great to see that there were 5 TCU Horned Frogs in double figures for scoring. Just like you said, Tennyson had 23, PV 18, Coles 12, Miller 11, and Jameer Nelson Jr. with 10. Really got some good production from a good chunk of folks, which I think is good to see. You know, and I was very pleased with it. I wasn't able to be at the game, but the atmosphere sounded pretty insane. So
yeah, it sounded good. Sounded like it was. Was it loud at all?
Yeah, it was very loud. There was not as many Texas Tech fans as the previous 2 years that I've been to TCU versus Texas Tech. Obviously, there was a good amount, but man, when Jameer Nelson, he hit a 3-pointer to give us, I think it was a 79-70 lead. I mean, that was as loud as I've heard Schollmeyer Arena. It was really incredible, and I think it played into the favor of TCU.
Yeah, that's keep the I don't know if people that haven't been students here for that long know, but like when it was the year I think that Ian and I, and even Zion, you got here 21.
Yeah, I transferred here the same time as y'all got here. Yeah,
basketball was not really a thing that students showed up for here, and that was given. A lack of winning was definitely a factor there, but people just didn't really care about basketball. But last 3 seasons, it's been crazy. It has discouraged me from going. That's how much it's been crazy, because now instead of just walking in and getting a seat, now I actually have to make an effort to to go to the game. But it's really nice. I guess we can pivot into the Texas game because of the crowd that was there too.
Yeah.
How long were people? People got there at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And
for the Texas game?
Yeah. And they were wrapped around because the football practice facility is just right there. When I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to go. But yeah, keep coming out, especially for these big games against in-state rivals. It's really encouraging, and it really helps, even though they lost to Texas, but it clearly helped against Tech. That's what the fans are for, to bring a good environment, and getting that win against Tech was big, because it started the week off right, because you don't know if you lose that game on Tuesday, you don't know how it's going to go on Saturday, and that you risk going 0-2 at that point in the week, which we've talked about on the show is just a big no. You can afford splitting the week. Yep. You cannot go 0-2, and that's what TCU did with the win against the Red Raiders. So props for them to doing that.
Yeah, Micah Peavy, 4 for 4 from downtown. That's
career high.
That was crazy.
Yeah, he was. I mean, had one of the best games I've seen Micah Peavy have. It was pretty awesome.
True revenge game for him. Yeah. Even though he only played there for a year.
Yeah, he said after the game, he's like, it didn't really feel like I ever was there. Like, it just felt like my whole career's been at TCU, and
that's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, things did not go so great for them on Saturday. They lost to Texas 77-66, despite the horns down shirts that Barstool TCU distributed. I think like 500 of them. Yep, you were in the student section. Did you get one?
Yeah. No, I grabbed one when we were waiting outside in the long line around the athletic facility.
Yeah. So how early did you get there?
I got there around 10:45.
wow.
Yeah, I got there around 10:45, and we were backed up like crazy already.
The game started at 1, folks.
Yeah.
Game started at 1, but they did let us in at 11:30, which was nice.
See, I got to get there at like 12, just through the media room and, but yeah. So it was a packed atmosphere there, and unfortunately TCU did not deliver to get the win in the final conference matchup between TCU and Texas. It was also a pretty significant night for Kenrich Williams. They retired his jersey. He became the 5th player in TCU men's basketball to have their jersey retired. I thought that was pretty cool. Desmond Bain was there, LaDainian Tomlinson, Kurt Thomas. A lot of TCU greats were there to celebrate Kenrich, but tough loss against Texas.
Yeah, it was a tough game, and I think one thing that was surprising, at least for me to start, was that TCU got off to a really good start. They held Texas to no points after the opening 3 minutes. Emmanuel Miller nailed an opening 3, and then Avery Anderson had a quick 7 points. So it was a great start, and then all of a sudden Texas, it's not like Texas turned it on, but they were always hanging in the game. And that's the thing, is that even though this Texas team may not be, ranked or thought of like crazy, and maybe there's some questions about their head coaching and things like that, but they're a team that has experience, and that experience helped them not let the crowd get the better of them, I think. Because especially playing at the Schollmeyer, that's something that it's really hard for opposing teams to not feed into and not have that, to really not have that throw them off course was huge.
Yeah, and I guess my theory is with like environments affecting opposing teams. For Texas, I feel like it might be a little less so. People come out to Texas games all the time. They're used to it. Whether or not they like the horns down or not is a different question, but they're used to loud environments, especially at TCU. Tech, on the other hand, is not everyone's biggest rival, so that's one thing. But yeah, Texas did a good job of just keeping composure, keeping in the game. I mean, they had an 11-point lead at the half, so they clearly clawed their way back pretty nicely. But the key to the game, obviously, was those last 3 and change minutes where Max Asmus went on a 13-2 run all on his own. Yeah. Asmus, obviously, for any college basketball fans that are familiar, has been in the spotlight for quite some time. He was on that Oral Roberts team that beat Ohio State in the 2021 March Madness tournament when they went on their little run and almost made it to the Sweet 16 as a 15 seed. They were the team that opened up the floodgates of 15 and 16 seeds winning the last couple of years, because that was not a thing that was like a once every 3-year occurrence. But he was on that team. He was on last year's Oral Roberts team, which was pretty good. And then he transferred to Texas for his last season, and he's been really good, but he really made his statement those last 3.5 minutes where, Emmanuel Miller ties it up at 64, and then TCU scores 2 more points, and Max Asmus scores 13, and that's the game. And it was really just shocking. I think it was a shock to the system for me watching and for everyone in the building. It just was... it was so loud when they tied it up, and then immediately it was gone.
Yeah, it was very weird. It just was such a sudden change in momentum. And yeah, they were able to keep him at bay for most of the game, and then he just went into a different gear in those last few minutes. Another thing, too, was the full court pressure that the Texas guards were playing on TCU. Rodney Terry said that was kind of something that they wanted to... They saw as like a weakness of TCU. He said, look, their guards are good, but they don't handle pressure very well. Mm-hmm. And honestly, they didn't handle it very well at all. A lot of turnovers, and the half-court offense looked a little shaky once again. So
it's what Iowa State did.
Yep, that's exactly what Iowa State did. So I'm interested to see if teams are going to kind of learn from Texas and Iowa State and keep doing that. How does TCU adjust? Or if they adjust, because to be honest, Avery Anderson and Jameer Nelson are kind of the only guys that are like elite ball handlers on this team. So that'll be interesting to see how they adjust to that.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I've been saying this all season with TCU basketball. It's not to just continue harping on it, but it's been an issue, and it's the in-game adjustments that I feel like TCU basketball fails to make. especially when we're playing away. If we get, because TCU is very susceptible to slow starts and things like that. And if the Frogs get, if the Frogs fall behind quickly and things aren't working, I don't feel like they're able to make adjustments within the first half. It takes until halftime to fully regroup, sit down, talk about it, then come out, and it looks like a completely different team. It's something that I want to see the team, get quicker at doing. Obviously, they're trying to make adjustments. It's not like Jamie Dixon sitting here like, oh, here's a full court press, and I guess we'll just wait till halftime. Obviously they're trying to make adjustments. It's just we're not really seeing the fruits of that labor yet, and yeah, it's definitely a bit concerning because, again, if TCU is unable to really be potent on the fast breaks, they really can become one-dimensional sometimes, especially when they can't make adjustments.
Yeah, rebounding was another thing that was really bad for TCU. Texas had so many second chance opportunities. And Dylan DeSue had a really solid game for Texas. He kind of kept them afloat and then A. Smith was able to, kind of run things the final few minutes. But yeah, rebounding had to be better for TCU. I feel like there's way too many chances where Texas had 2 or 3 chances to score.
Yeah, some of the key moments were exactly like that, where TCU is in it, they get a big stop, can't get the board, and then Texas ends up scoring on that possession. And where you had a shot to maybe tie it or take the lead, now Texas has made it a 2-possession game, and now you're having to climb an even higher mountain than you would have had to. I guess we can pivot now because TCU does not play tomorrow. A little off bye week, so that's good after I think a loss like that to gather your bearings, especially because they're going into Ames, the team that did what Texas did first to TCU. Now you would like to think that if you're an Iowa State fan that you're trying to replicate what you did, even though I guess getting like 20 turnovers in 3 minutes would be very difficult to do. But it's certainly something that they're going to try and replicate. How does TCU adjust? I feel like we've been talking about that. And how do they go into Ames, which is a very tough place to play, and pull out a victory? Because if they lose that game, they're at 500 in a conference in a blink of an eye.
It's crazy. It's the Big 12, and Iowa State's coming off a heartbreaking loss to Baylor. I don't know who they play during the week, but yeah,
Texas.
They play Texas. Okay, so yeah, this is going to be a really good matchup here, and obviously TCU is going to clean up the turnovers. You would think. I mean, certainly. It'd be very hard to top 27.
I sure hope we clean up the turnovers because that was ridiculous.
Yeah, maybe this time they'll get like 26 or no. I'm only joking. But
we're just looking for improvement.
Yes, just looking for improvement and trying to throw Keyshawn Gilbert and Curtis Jones keep them off balance and out of the passing lanes. Maybe not as predictable with their passes.
Yeah, that and I think the biggest storyline coming into this TCU Iowa State game is Tamin Lipsey's going to be back playing. He wasn't here when Iowa State came to Fort Worth and handled TCU fairly nicely. I think that's going to be a massive storyline with him being there. How does TCU adjust to him on the court? He's their second. He's averaging the second most points per game with 13.6 behind Keyshawn Gilbert, who is averaging 14.2. Two really, really good guards. And again, TCU played just against Gilbert last time, and the Cyclones took care of business pretty swiftly. And Seth, you said it as well, and I'm just going to keep going back to it, is playing what's the stadium called? Hilton Coliseum. That's not an easy place to go by any means. This is just the Big 12 in a nutshell. It just will not get any easier until after Iowa State, when I think TCU has a chance to go on a nice run. But
what's y'all's what do y'all think is the toughest place to play in the conference?
Kansas.
Other than, I guess that's the easy answer. Other than Fog Allen.
I mean, I'm interested to see, because I have not seen a road or a home BYU game in this conference. I'm curious. Yeah. I feel like that could be a really tough. I've heard that it's a pretty tough atmosphere to win in, but Actually, I did see BYU at home versus Texas, and
Okay.
yeah, that stadium was pretty loud. I feel like that could be a very tough place to win in.
Baylor, I think, is always hard, but it's
They show up.
But that's the thing. They show up whenever TCU's in town. Houston, we haven't experienced Houston, but I'd imagine that Houston's probably a pretty dang tough place to go, especially when they're one of the premier programs in the country as well. But I'm curious to see what Ames has in store. I feel like that place is going to be rocking.
What would you say, Seth?
Kansas is
Yeah.
up there. I think it might be Iowa State.
Yeah.
The worst is Oklahoma State, and that's not a knock on the team. That's just a knock on their mood towards basketball as a whole.
Yeah.
Great athletic department. Baseball and football are awesome for them, but they don't care. Even though they produce Cade Cunningham. That is. But I think Oklahoma State's the worst, and I'm going to go Iowa State second because we're just playing for second at this point.
Yeah. Did you guys see Allen Fieldhouse this weekend against Houston? Like, they were jumping, man. That was a really insane atmosphere. It's like the sixth man. It just it's unstoppable. It's so hard to win there.
It makes me wonder how TCU beat them there last year at all.
By like 20.
Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy. And we almost beat them this year.
That's their last home loss. They haven't lost at home since.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
It's such a weird outlier. Like, they just Bill Self, they just don't lose there. And then they lost by 20 to TCU. Like, I remember watching that game, like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of Kansas's losses this year are either neutral site or on the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Looking at the schedule, I'm curious to hear what you guys have to think, because it'll have been a full week before TCU goes to Iowa and plays this game on Saturday. After that, though, the schedule kind of like evens out a little bit. TCU's had a really tough first half of conference play. What do you guys think of the second half of conference play? What do you guys want to see from TCU as we get into, I guess, the latter end or really the final month of Big 12 play?
You gotta pick up they're not easy, but you got to pick up the ones that are like low-hanging fruit. So that's West Virginia at home, that's Cincinnati at home, and that's UCF at home. Those three home games are not must-win, but they're games that you expect to win as a conference contender. But there's some losses in there. Tough road games: Kansas State, Tech, and BYU all on the road, and West Virginia. Even though they're not having a down year, but they like basketball.
Yeah.
Up in where are they? Morgantown.
Morgantown.
So pick up wins against those three home games is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and while it is going to be tough to win on the road against Kansas State, they have been struggling like mightily. They've lost 4 in a row. So, assuming that trend continues, or even if they win one game, or that's something where I could see TCU winning. You just hope that like 10 wins. I think 10 is like the goal in this conference. I mean, or 9. I would say 10 though. 10's the goal, and I think TCU could do that. What do you guys? Do you guys think that they could do that?
Well, that's just 4 more, right?
Yeah, I mean,
they're 5 and 4.
Sorry, 5 more. Yeah,
10 or 11.
Yeah, I would say we probably drop. I'm just kind of predicting here. I would imagine we drop one of the home games, probably Baylor. Yeah, I definitely think it's possible. It's definitely possible and reachable. But I think TCU is going to end up with 10 or 11 wins.
Yeah. Which where they've been like at the 8 range like the last couple years, right?
9 games the last 2, I think.
9, okay.
9 and 9.
Yeah, they've fallen out of the top 25, which they seem to play. They seem to play better when they're not ranked. So
yeah,
like they get ranked inside the top 25 and then they just immediately fall out. So.
I found that strange because like their one win this week was arguably better than their loss.
Yeah. And then. I don't know. To me, like Texas Tech lost both. I know they were 15, but they lost both games, and they're still, they're at 23. BYU's at 21. Iowa State dropped a couple, but
That's also the thing, Seth, and we mentioned it on last week's episode, right? Heading into this past week, obviously, going 2-0 would be great, but let's be honest with ourselves. 1-1 would be, probably realistic. And I have to say, I think the win over number 15 Texas Tech, it's better than the loss at Texas is worse, if that makes sense. It's like, yeah, the loss at Texas, you never want to lose to Texas for more of the emotional and rivalry reasons, but the win over Texas Tech means more on the season and in terms of seeding for the tournament and conference play and things like that. I think that was one thing that fans were maybe grappling with throughout this week. Is, oh man, if we drop a game, do we want to lose to a ranked team or do we want to just or lose to Texas, right? And fortunately, we got the win over the ranked team, but couldn't do it against Texas. But
yeah, I almost wonder if the games were switched, would we still be ranked because the more recent game was the win?
That probably is the case. That probably is how that works.
We lost to Texas. Anyways, it doesn't matter too much because as long as TCU takes care of business, I mean, they'll be just fine. But that'll wrap things up for our men's basketball segment. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the NBA. It's been a little while since we brought that up, so we're going to talk about All-Star, trade deadline, and some MVP talk right here on KTCU The Choice.